Back in the spring of 2010, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver released in the United States. These were remakes of the original Game Boy Color games Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver, but unlike any other remake Pokemon we've had, Heart Gold and Soul Silver have their own special charm that I can't really put my finger on. It wasn't exactly a direct one-to-one remake, sort of like how Fire Red and Leaf Green were to Red and Blue, which just has some updated mechanics for the most part, and it wasn't like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which changed up the home region a little bit and had a slightly different story than the original Ruby and Sapphire. Heart Gold and Soul Silver didn't really add anything too substantial, but what we got was still an amazing Pokemon game that is still one of the most popular and most played Pokemon games even to this day. Recently, I played through Pokemon Heart Gold again on stream as I'm trying to stream through every single Pokemon region in 2019, and I honestly forgot just how special Heart Gold really is. I've only played through Heart Gold and Soul Silver one time in its entirety, and that was back in 2010 when the games first came out. About a month ago, on March 14th to be exact, that was the 9th anniversary of the release of Heart Gold and Soul Silver in the US as well. I still remember going to GameStop to pick up my copy of Soul Silver on release as I played Silver as a kid, so naturally I'd pre-order Soul Silver, as well as the Lugia statue I got as a pre-order bonus, and playing it to death. This was the first time I really dove into competitive battling as well, spending a lot of my time breeding and EV training for a perfect team, as well as watching countless Wi-Fi battles on YouTube. I pretty much fell in love with Pokemon again at this time, and if it wasn't for me watching all these Wi-Fi battles on YouTube, I probably wouldn't be here today making Pokemon videos on YouTube. Now going back to the original Gold and Silver games, they were sequels to the original Pokemon Red and Blue games, tasked with continuing the series after the phenomenon that was left behind in Generation 1 in the late 90s. This was quite the tall task, as following up one of the most influential and best-selling video games of all time puts a lot of pressure on a game's sequel. The first Pokemon games had their issues, sure, plagued with glitches and a lot of just weird mechanics that don't make a lot of sense, which did add a lot to their charm to be fair, but left a ton of room for improvement when it comes to a sequel. Gold and Silver did a fantastic job improving upon Pokemon Red and Blue, and showing the world that Pokemon was here for a long time, and it wasn't just a one-hit wonder with Red and Blue. Gold and Silver delivered, and they delivered hard. It seems to me like Generation 2 in general is one of the most popular favorite generations amongst Pokemon fans, and although a lot of it might just be nostalgia, these games are still very good today. So as I'm sure you guys can imagine, when we got the news that there would be a remake for Gold and Silver on the Nintendo DS, Pokemon fans worldwide were very excited. Gold and Silver had their own special charm, unlike any other Pokemon game, to make them feel unique from Red and Blue especially, and a lot of that charm is still even carried on to Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I think part of what gives Heart Gold and Soul Silver its added charm is the little extra features we got in it as well. The big one people love is having Pokemon follow you around. There really isn't any actual benefit or reason to have a Pokemon follow you in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but many fans enjoyed seeing their favorite Pokemon go on a journey with them. The auto sprint button was fantastic as well, especially for speedrunners, as you can just tap the button on the touchscreen and you can just infinitely run instead of having to hold the B button, and the game as a whole runs the best out of any of the 4th generation DS games, as Diamond and Pearl suffer from a lot of slowdown and screen tearing, which was due to them being the very first games on the console, and Game Freak wasn't as familiar as developing for the DS as they were once they produced Heart Gold and Soul Silver. The game looks pretty good for a DS game as well, and seeing the Johto region on a newer console with better graphics than the Game Boy Color was an amazing feature to see, as someone who grew up playing the original Gold and Silver and has a lot of fond memories of that game. Now, aside from the graphical improvements brought along with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you cannot talk about Generation 2 in general without mentioning the music. The music in Generation 1 was not bad at all, but Generation 2's music was a huge step up in my opinion, and has some of the most memorable music tracks out of any Pokemon game. The remakes enhanced the music to make it even better, and they even added a feature in the game where you could listen to the original Game Boy version of the music if you want on the radio. This was a very nice little feature and a nice throwback, and it's the small features like this that really make Heart Gold and Soul Silver one of the best Pokemon games in my opinion. The Johto region in general is a fantastically designed region as well. I feel like this is something that goes really underappreciated with the Johto region, as unlike newer regions, specifically Generations 5 and 7, where most of the exploration is a rather linear and boring path, the Johto region has a lot to offer. There's a couple of gym leaders you could battle out of order in the middle of the game as well, which can really suit your playstyle depending on what team you have and what type of advantage you have against certain gym leaders. It makes every playthrough a little bit more unique if you go through the gyms in different order, and it's a very nice little touch. Goldenrod City in general acts as a fantastic hub city, and it's one of the best hub-like cities in the entire series in my opinion. Every single generation has a city like Goldenrod for the most part that is usually in the middle of the game and connects up a large chunk of the region and usually has a department store or some other big things in that town. Goldenrod City makes backtracking a lot easier, exploring a lot more fun, and overall improves the overall experience of traveling through the Johto region. Heart Gold and Soul Silver didn't exactly improve upon this, but they didn't exactly need to as they got it close to perfect the first time around in Gold and Silver. Heart Gold and Soul Silver were also the first remake games that I was actually old enough to properly appreciate as well. When Fire Red and Leaf Green came out in 2004, I was only 9 years old, and although Red version was my first Pokemon game that I played, I was still very young and wasn't exactly old enough to have much nostalgia for the Fire Red and Leaf Green remakes. When Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out, I was about 14, compared to only being about 6 years old when I first played through Silver version, so as you can imagine, there was a lot more nostalgia there. I was able to appreciate these remakes a lot more, and I was so excited for them to come out that I almost ordered a Japanese copy so I could get the game a few months before the American release. To be honest, I don't really remember getting the original Silver version as well for the first time like I remember getting Red version as a kid, but I do remember playing it a ton and making a ton of memories, but at least I do remember getting Crystal version on my birthday from my grandfather, which is close enough. Now while I was playing through Silver version for the first time, this was also around the time that I moved, so of course I was a little upset leaving my friends behind and going to a brand new place I've never really lived before, but having my copy of Silver version to play along the way made it a bit easier on me as a kid, which is probably why I love the Johto games so much to this day. The Generation 2 Pokemon games are also the only Pokemon games in the entire series that allow you to travel to another region, being the Kanto region. This is amazing, and it's something that pretty much every Pokemon fan has wanted ever since we saw it in Gold and Silver, and we have yet to have a game where you can travel to a whole nother region. I really hope this is something that we see in the future game where you go to a second region, but for now, Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Gold and Silver by association being the only games where you can travel to another region really adds to how special these games are. For the longest time, when anybody would ask me what my favorite Pokemon generation was or my favorite Pokemon game was, I would always say Generation 4, specifically Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, just one of the Sinnoh games. It was more of a cop-out answer to be honest, as those were the games that I played through the most time, aside from Generation 1 most likely, but I don't want to say Gen 1 and be a Gen 1er, and although I still really enjoy the Sinnoh games, I have to say, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are my new favorite Pokemon games for the time being. Playing through Heart Gold and Soul Silver again brought back a lot of memories from when I first played through Soul Silver as a kid, EV training and battling online, as well as memories and nostalgia of playing through Silver when I was even younger, and not really knowing what I was doing in terms of Pokemon. Let's face it, nostalgia is a big reason why a lot of older Pokemon fans like myself still hold on to the series and still play the series so much to this day and love it so much. Maybe this is all just nostalgia clouding my judgment when it comes to Pokemon, but if it makes you happy, then is it really that bad after all? Let me know in the comment section down below which Pokemon game was the first Pokemon you played, as well as the one that you have the most memories of playing as a kid and the most nostalgia. I know a lot of viewers that watch me tend to be a lot younger than me, so I'd be really interested to see if maybe Ruby and Sapphire was your first Pokemon game, or maybe even X and Y was your first Pokemon game. Either way, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below, and leave a like if you enjoyed the video, as it really does go a long way. Subscribe if you haven't already, have a great rest of your day, I will see you all in the next video, and bye bye.